he? What happened now?
Yeah. I mean, no, like you saw that he had I guess a training video. He was like on the field and he was throwing he was practicing some kind of quarterback drill. Like he was just like throwing the ball. He was doing a couple of routes.
Yeah.
And he just like so then he just put it out on YouTube and people like. So what is this? Like, are you this guy trying to play? Like, oh, and people are like, oh yeah, Seattle should definitely pick him up. And then and everyone's like having their different takes about like, oh yeah, well didn't he?
I was trying to push that out, make it loud because that's what I thought of it.
We were like, oh, didn't he equate the NFL draft pick to slavery? And he's just like. And people were just ripping in with all different kind of takes, and I don't know too much about the sport, like how good of a quarterback he actually is, but I could talk about the hypocrisy part of it, or like, and I know I have my personal feelings about it, so I was just like,
I think he's criticized too much because he wasn't as bad as I think a lot of people say.
Yeah, so I mean,
serviceable would be a good approach.
Yeah,
because the problem is like, do you know it? A little bit about football?
Yeah.
Okay. So they were... now I just got a brain fart and lost what I was going to say. What is it, the pistol? I think it was. But they were trying different formations.
Mm-hmm.
Where basically they were having guys like Robert Griffin.
Yeah.
And other guys. So basically...
I used to be proud to be like, yeah, I'm Robert Griffin.
Yeah, so like basically the defenses ended up figuring out a better way to defend that, as any defense as the league does. Like, you're gonna change a different formation, and then you're gonna be okay. Well, let's come up with the formation to then beat it, and then someone figures it out, and then like everybody then copies that, and then it's just implemented to the league, and then you have to hide it better, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that ended up happening, which then ended up putting Kaepernick or all of those type of like. Speedy quarterbacks, where they have to now be in a position where they need to be a better pocket passer, because then that keeps the defense more honest, which then allows that to open up, which then you can then utilize to start running play action and all those.
Yeah.
So because he wasn't as effective as a pocket passer as he was when he was running around and getting big gains and having throwing for a good amount of yardage and touchdowns. He just, he's not bad. He just
wasn't adaptable to those pinch situations. Okay.
He could still play in the league.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't, he wasn't going to lead you into the playoffs and potentially win a Super Bowl. Most likely. I mean, maybe if the weapons were right, or a great offensive line, but he wasn't a Tom Brady that just wasn't allowed to bloom like that.
Yeah.
But then he wasn't a shitty quarterback. Right. Some people try and make it seem like no, he had a good arm. He was very athletic.
I think those things need to be separated.
Yeah.
So
I'll try. I'll try and give him credit. I don't think he was a bum.
Yeah. And so I don't know about his athletic performance. I don't really want to touch on that too much. But I was kind of curious about his take, and I saw that clip or he's equating the draft or football to slavery. And I was just like...
I think I showed you that.
Oh, yeah. But then I got real curious, and I was like, all right, well, let me express my feelings on this guy, and then take it from there. But I was like, let me give this guy a fair shake, though. So I was like, I know he had that show on Netflix that I was like, I'll never watch that bullshit. But I was like, you know what? Let me check it out. So I did.
Is it kind of like the Dear White People?
I couldn't watch that.
It's not necessarily bad, but it's exactly what you think it is, and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this.
It was more revealing than I thought it was, and it made me feel more sympathy for who he was, because I was like, oh shit, this guy has no idea.
We talked about this briefly.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he's a tragic character.
What do you think he just has an identity issue and he's trying to latch on to something?
Yeah, I think he's violently. I think he's like
violent.
Yeah, I think he's hyper aggressive.
Will Smith.
Yeah, I think he's or taking a Will Smith approach to finding his identity.
Will Smith needs to slap his
Yeah, I think he was talking about bald bitches because he's talking about cornrows in episode 1 and it's something about bald bitches. But yeah, I watched it and it starts off with that scene with the whole
the plantation thing.
Yeah. I thought your take was funny, but like what about the white NFL players? Are they slaves too? It's like
because they're getting measured.
Yeah, the same capacity. It's like that's a stretch, bro. That's a like it's like.
But the whole point is that you're drafting people who were amateur athletes and now are becoming professional athletes.
Yeah.
And then you need to understand, okay, like, well, this person's going to be a wide receiver. We know that the average wide receiver height is, obviously, I have no idea, but like 6'3".
Yeah.
We'll just say, like, or 6'2". It's like average wingspan of that wide receiver is 6'8".
Yeah. And athletic,
then there's a wide receiver who's 5'9", but has on average like is 0.2 or 0.3 of a second faster than the average wide receiver. Well, that's pretty fast because that's almost half a second faster on a dead sprint.
Right, and that's how they.
And then maybe at 5'9", his wingspan is. Like, my wingspan is like 6 feet, and I'm 5'7".
Solid.
So, if I was 5'9", what if my wingspan was like 6'4"?
Yeah.
So now I'm 5'9", but I have a 6'4" wingspan, which might help overcompensate for my lack of height.
Especially if you're receiving.
But then if I'm also really fast...
Yeah.
Then this is a guy that we could invest in and draft.
100%. These are just tools that they utilize to assess the assets that they're trying to acquire, but it doesn't...
Like there are guys who ran 40s and they were not good, and then they drop because it's like
because running in a straight line uninhibited is a lot different than whether you have a bunch of people who are like
it's because they're matching
push-ups for a living.
It's matching it up to what they're looking for at that position. So we're looking for a linebacker. We like you, but your 40 is like 0.4 off. Yeah. Like slower than the average guy at your position that starts in the NFL.
Yeah.
We might take a risk on you in the 5th round, but we're not drafting you any time ahead of that.
Right.
No one else is really going to go after it because they don't need it, or they're like, too slow, doesn't matter, doesn't fit our scheme. Yeah. So then you may or may not even get to play in the NFL.
Right.
Because of a couple tenths off of your 40, but they're meaningful because...
Yeah. The metrics, whatever metrics that they're utilizing.
So you have to grade. It's just like basketball. It's like
you need anything. It's literally
anything physical.
Anything. I mean, shit. Academically, we all measure everybody off their SAT scores. We have a generic.
But that's
test
a little different.
I'm just saying that but where you're measuring
physical capabilities, you need to know like what someone's vertical is.
Yeah, but it's just like you're measuring assets like the same way that schools is like you're gonna give the school upwards of $40,000. But they're going to measure your ability to prepare and perform on this test as an indicator of your ability to succeed in school. They'll take your $40,000, but they want you to succeed because they want to take everybody. Ideally, they'll take everybody who's going to graduate, and then that way they graduate, and then they become alumni, and they contribute to the school, and the school even gets more money and then more notoriety because they're seen as a school that produces these great gems. Like everywhere does this. They have these basic metrics to assess these, but especially in athletic sports, like I mean, you could be
height, wingspan, weight, like.
And when you look at a fight card, like
body fat percentage,
exactly. It's just like
the fight card reach length.
The reach is this, the weight is this, their weigh-in was this, they're this old, they have this many knockouts. It's all this fucking numbers. It's a way to assess human beings from person to person, but we do that in literally
calculating risks and everything like that.
Every element of life, like we do that. Like you when you get hired for a job, what was your last job? What was your salary? What was your greatest asset? How much money did you bring into your last company? What's the biggest project that you worked on? It's like, what is your worth? That's all this is. But it's like oversimplify what you're worth.
I like how they
niggas.
I like how they had the guy that was like monitoring the draft shake hands with the overseer.
Yeah. Oh.
So some guy with a clipboard is just like, oh, that's a good 40, and then they're equating it.
Yeah. It's like it would be the same thing if a box
To Big Daddy.
Yeah. It would have been like if a brothel, someone came out and it equated UFC fighters to brothels. Like they check the weights, they try to look at the measurements, and they like assess how good I roll on the floor. Like, oh, this is terrible.
I feel so used and violated.
Yeah, my naked body. They demand that I show my chest.
Strip to my underwear.
And perform in front of a crowd in a cage. It's just like, oh god. But that was like the first clip. And then like the rest of the episode was largely like I thought it was entertaining. I was like, oh, this is funny. This is like he's talking. It's just like him going through adolescence, and he's like living in these all white communities, and like maybe with like one or two other black people, and like trying to figure out like, oh yeah, I want cornrows, and like, oh, how do you do this, and like, oh, how am I supposed to lay? And his parents that are like from the '60s or something like that are absolutely oblivious to anything black culture related outside of what they see on TV.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, look at Allen Iverson, and they're just like, oh, look at this thug. And like he makes this simplification of an analysis where he equates, oh, well, they, like his parents and like everybody in that community included, equate Allen Iverson to this thugnificent or these nigga mentality because he just embraces his culture. You know, he embraces the dress, he embraces the hair, so that's why they hate him. And I'm just like, no, he's from that environment, so it's not like he's trying to be fictitious like Will Smith. But at least Allen Iverson, he was like, that's who he genuinely was.
Well, so that's
and
what he was.
like,
that's what he was. Like that's why people like didn't like it. Like
yeah, it's like
people weren't looking. I mean, they probably were looking at Steve Harvey with the big suits, thinking he was a joke. But like they weren't like, oh my god, you can't trust that. I mean,
yeah. I mean, and the NBA has always had an image problem, and so when
that's why they came up with the dress code.
Yeah,
because of Allen Iverson.
Yeah, but it's like, but the way that Colin Kaepernick was looking at it, at least in the first episode, was like a hyper simplification of all those elements, and I was just like, oh wow. And the way that he portrays like the people around him in the school, his coaches, his parents, and like, and he kind of gave props to his parents where he's just like, they were just like, oh, like, why are you wearing cornrows? Like, oh, get that thing out your hair. Like, they didn't even know what it was called. Like, that's how out of touch they were. Like, and then
Was
like,
he talking about the pick?
No, he was just talking about just him having cornrows because he's always had this unkempt afro, or like sometimes they'll keep it short. They'll go to a white salon. But like he would never have a buzz cut or a shape up or anything like that. But then his friend, a black kid that he goes to school with, has cornrows, and he's like, yeah, I know this one lady who could do it for you. And so he goes to this girl's house and he gets it done. And then he's just like, oh, okay, I got it done. But then he had such a hard time because he didn't know how to maintain it. And then he kept scratching it. And then eventually he took it out. And his mom saw it and was just like, all right, I see that he wants to be like this. So she goes to a black neighborhood and finds a place that does his cornrows. And you see she's all uncomfortable and she doesn't understand what's going on. Shit like that. It's like the most like the Brady Bunch meets Southside Chicago. Jefferson. Like, it's crazy. But it's just like, but I was like, wow, if this was his childhood, like if this was like the environment that he grew up in, like, and the way that he's making these assessments of like, oh yeah, they didn't like Allen Iverson because he embraced black culture. It's like, no, that's where he's from. He didn't embrace black culture. That's who he is. It's like,
black culture isn't that.
Yeah,
it's like.
And it has a lot of faces, but he simplified
North,
it.
South, middle of the country,
yeah.
Country, suburbs,
there's
city.
The black farmers, the inner city blacks. There's blacks that came yesterday.
Chicago, DC, like it's
the black Cubans, like it's
the foods.
Yeah, but he was so.
It's all predicated on region and like state.
Right, but he looked at it the way that a lot, like, these cats and like
cats.
I'm sorry.
He's looking at these cats.
Hey, I'm showing my age, yo. But like these whatever, these youths in like the suburban, like in PG County, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, things are so ghetto out here." I'm like, "Shut the fuck up, yo! Like you live in a fucking house. Like go eat a dick." Like, I don't want to hear your bullshit. Like shut up. But it's like they associate the typical hip hop culture to the black experience in America, and it's like no, that's not everything. That's not everybody.
It's more to it than just that.
Yeah, but like so I just started seeing him as a tragic character. I was like, oh, this guy just has no fucking idea who he is. Like he's violently, and at the end of it, it's just like this. One of his baseball coaches are like, oh yeah, he has to cut his shit off, or else he can't play. And his parents are like, yeah, you have to do this what the coach said. And he's like struggling with it. And then he's just like, eventually he concedes. He's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But it's just like, in showcasing, like, he's trying to portray it like as justification as to why he's so vocal at speaking out against what he sees as racist culture in the NFL now. Because before he didn't speak out against it, now he will. But then again, now he's on like putting out YouTube videos about him throwing the football around. So I'm just like, what? Which one is it, man? Like, you have to make a stand for what you say. Like, don't sit over here and bullshit. Now he's playing games. Either he wants to get back in the NFL and he's doing this shit.
I think it's all publicity.
Yeah, or he's just doing it because he knows that they won't call him back to the NFL, and he's just like, see, they still won't take me back, and he's trying to be relevant. And I'm just like, either way, I mean, you're being less than 100% honest to somebody. And I'm like, I really don't like that. That's 100%. I mean, I would say bitch ass behavior, but I honestly don't think he knows any better. I don't think he understands who he is. I think he's finally trying to figure out how to fit into everything. Like, I just don't think he knows. But, yeah.
Well, that sounds lovely.
Yeah, those are my heroes, Kaepernick and Will Smith.
You're very depressing.